Raiders of the Lost Ark wasn't just an adventure film. It was lightning in a leather jacket, a movie that made history dangerous and turned archaeology into a fistfight with God. But behind the fedora and flying fists, nothing went according to plan. The cast took real damage. Ford limped through it. One face melt almost cost the PG rating. And years later, a group of Mississippi kids remade the whole thing, frame by frame. These are 20 weird facts about Raiders of the Lost Ark. And hidden inside the chaos? A Star Wars Easter egg, snuck in by George Lucas himself. Hold your breath. We're opening the Ark. Number 1. It started on a beach. Two friends walking and talking, trying to escape the pressure of Hollywood. Steven Spielberg had just missed out on directing a James Bond movie. He told George Lucas he still wanted to make that kind of film. International, daring, iconic. Lucas shook his head. I've got something better. He pitched him as a globe-trotting archaeologist. A whip, a hat, a lost ark with biblical powers. Not slick like Bond, but scrappy, dusty, mortal. Spielberg loved it instantly. The only problem? The script didn't exist yet. They made a pact on that beach. No studio interference, no drawn-out development. They'd just make it fun. And out of that conversation, between two friends in the sand, Indiana Jones was born. Not in a boardroom, not in a writer's room, but in the space between disappointment and imagination. Number 2. Spielberg didn't want to cast Harrison Ford. Not at first. He worried it would feel like another Han Solo. Too familiar, too easy. So they searched everywhere. Dozens of actors read, but one stood out. Tom Selleck. He had the look, the charisma, the mustache. Selleck was ready. Auditions locked. Contracts prepped. He even screen tested in full costume. Hat, whip, leather jacket, and he nailed it. The studio breathed easy. They had their adventurer. But then, a problem no one saw coming. CBS. Selleck's network wouldn't let him out of Magnum PI. The contract was ironclad. No matter how hard he pleaded, they refused. Just like that, the role was gone. Selleck was crushed. Spielberg was stunned. And the clock was ticking. Only weeks from filming, Raiders had no Indy, no hero, no time. That's when Spielberg turned to Lucas and said, I still think Harrison's the guy. And this time, Lucas agreed. 3 weeks before the cameras rolled, they made the call. Ford picked up the phone, and the legend was born. Not with a plan, but with a backup. Number 3. The name didn't sound right. Too plain, too soft, too much like your neighbor's accountant. Originally, Lucas called the project The Adventures of Indiana Smith. He loved it, thought it had an old serial flair. Spielberg? Not so much. He said it sounded wrong in the mouth, clunky, forgettable. They went back and forth, pitched other names, tried Montana, Dakota, even Wyoming. Nothing clicked until someone suggested a change that was almost laughably simple. Keep Indiana, lose Smith, make it Jones. Just like that, it all fell into place. Suddenly, it sounded like a legend, like something carved into stone. Not a name from a form, but a name from history. And Spielberg smiled. Now that's an adventure. Number 4. They were shooting in 130-degree heat. Flies everywhere. Food that sat out too long. The cast and crew were working long days in Tunisia, and nearly everyone got sick. Diarrhea, vomiting, sweating through takes. One by one, they dropped like flies. Harrison Ford? Sick. George Lucas? Miserable. Except for one person, Spielberg himself. While everyone else gambled on local food, he stayed in his trailer, brought canned SpaghettiOs from home, hundreds of them. He ate the same thing every day. No seasoning, no risk. And while the rest of the crew clutched their stomachs between takes, Spielberg stayed upright, unshaken, unbothered, and weirdly well-fed. It was the director's least cinematic decision, and probably his smartest. Number 5. It was meant to be a full-on duel. Whip versus sword. Indiana Jones backed into a dusty alley staring down a master swordsman with a blade the size of a canoe oar. The fight had been choreographed, rehearsed, costumes and props were ready. But there was just one problem. Harrison Ford was dying. Not literally, but close. He had dysentery, the brutal kind. Sweating, shivering, cramping between every take. He could barely stand, let alone swing a whip. And they were on a schedule. The whole crew, the extras, the gear, all waiting in the heat. So Ford pulled Spielberg aside. What if I just shoot him? Spielberg blinked, paused, then smiled. Let's try it. They rolled camera. The swordsman did his flashy moves. And Ford, fed up, sick, and totally in character, pulled out his revolver and fired. One shot. Scene over. The crew laughed. Spielberg kept it. And the audience, they went wild. What was supposed to be a choreographed battle became one of the greatest comedic reversals in action movie history, all because Harrison Ford couldn't hold it in. Number 6. Ford's luck didn't get much better. A few days later, during one of the stunt-heavy action scenes, he jumped, landed wrong, and tore a ligament in his knee. The pain was immediate. Swelling, stiffness. He could barely bend it. The doctor suggested flying him back to London for surgery. Ford refused. Instead, he wrapped the knee, took painkillers, and kept going. If you look closely in some scenes, you'll notice he's limping. He's favoring one leg, but he never stops. Indy's rough, physical, exhausted performance, that wasn't acting. That was Harrison Ford, barely holding himself together, and doing it anyway. Number 7. The bar fight in Nepal was already chaotic. Bottles breaking, guns drawn, fire spreading. Karen Allen, playing Marion, was rehearsing her big escape moment when everything went wrong. Her costume caught the flame. A streak of fire ran up her back. It wasn't part of the stunt, and for a few terrifying seconds, no one realized it was real. A crew member grabbed her, doused the flames. She was shaken, but okay. Still, it was a close call. And that wild, desperate energy you see in the final cut? It's not just acting. She'd just been inches away from becoming the most dangerous stunt in the movie. Number 8. They wanted spectacle. Big, loud, unforgettable. So they built it, by hand. A full-size Nazi flying wing, steel frame, spinning blades, no CGI, no cheats. And for the explosion, they didn't fake it. The team rigged the plane with real fuel. Pyrotechnics lined the undercarriage. One take, no margin for error. The stunt was set in Tunisia. Blistering heat, a dozen moving parts, fire, gas, metal, timing. When the director called action, the charges blew, and the world caught fire. The explosion was bigger than anyone expected. The blast wave ripped through the set, and for a terrifying moment, it wasn't part of the show. Debris flew, flames surged, the crew dove for cover. One wrong step, and this scene would have ended in tragedy. When the smoke cleared, the damage was real, but somehow, no one was seriously hurt. They got the shot and left the wreckage in place, a scorched monument to how far they were willing to go for one perfect moment of movie magic. Number 9. Spielberg wanted the fear to be real. No rubber snakes, no stop-motion tricks. So when it came time to film The Well of Souls, they called in the wranglers. Truck after truck arrived, bag after bag, crate after crate. They dumped them into the set, live, slithering, hissing. Over 7,000 snakes covered the floor, and Harrison Ford had to walk right into them. But one snake wasn't playing nice. A cobra, coiled, raised, ready. Karen Allen crouched down for the shot. The cobra flared its hood and struck. Only one thing saved her, a sheet of plexiglass, nearly invisible, nearly. Watch the scene closely. You can still see the reflection of the safety glass, caught forever in the final cut. A blink and you miss it moment, where Marion Ravenwood almost died on camera. And the only thing more terrifying than snakes on the set was how close they actually got. Number 10. It was never just archaeology, not when George Lucas was involved. From the moment Raiders began, Lucas treated it like a treasure chest, and he couldn't resist sneaking in a few of his own. Look closely in the Well of Souls. Among the ancient hieroglyphs, hidden in plain sight, you can spot clear carvings of C-3PO and R2-D2. Not in focus, not announced, just there, waiting for fans with eagle eyes and freeze frames. But that wasn't the only galactic Easter egg. Even before Indy reached the Ark, Lucas planted another secret. On a plane at the beginning of the film, look closely at its fuselage. You'll find the designation OBCPO, a clever, subtle nod to both Obi-Wan Kenobi and C-3PO. These weren't just background details. They were Lucas's personal signature, a wink across galaxies, from ancient tombs to space operas. Because for him, these weren't separate universes. They were part of the same myth-making DNA. Heroes, relics, chosen ones. One with a lightsaber, one with a whip. And maybe that's why Raiders felt so magical. It wasn't just history, it was story, told by someone who knew exactly how to hide a galaxy far, far away, inside a jungle temple. Number 11. The hat wasn't just a costume, it was the character. Indiana Jones without the fedora? Unthinkable. But the real-world problem? That hat kept flying off. During stunts, chase scenes, and windy desert shoots, it wouldn't stay on Ford's head. So the costume team got creative. They modified the inside with custom elastic, tight enough to hold through jumps, punches, and even full-on whip cracks. No glue, no chin strap, just clever engineering. and it worked. In the final film, the hat stays on during the truck drag, during the Boulder escape, even during scenes where logic says it shouldn't. It wasn't just luck, it was design. Because if the hat flew off, the myth would too. Number 12. It's the kind of scene that makes your palms sweat. Indy leaps onto a moving truck, fights his way forward, gets thrown beneath the wheels, and drags behind it, holding on for dear life. But here's what most fans don't know. That entire sequence was real, and Harrison Ford didn't use a stunt double. The idea came from a 1939 Western called Stagecoach. In that film, stunt legend Yakima Kanut pulled off a daring underhorse carriage drag. Spielberg loved it and wanted to honor it with trucks. They mapped the shot in Tunisia, dug a trench beneath the road just deep enough for Ford's body to pass. He would wear a concealed harness. One chance, no backup plan. The truck rolled, the camera ran, and Ford went under. Dust in his mouth, tires inches from his skull, every second a gamble, and he nailed it, start to finish. That moment, that drag, that grit isn't special effects. It's Ford risking his body to give Indy his legend. And in doing it, he didn't just honor Stagecoach, he made film history of his own. Number 13. It was Alfred Molina's very first film scene, and he was covered in tarantulas. Playing Satipo, Indy's ill-fated guide, Molina had to walk through a cave while spiders crawled across his back. They placed dozens on him, rolled camera, and waited for the movement. But nothing happened. The spiders just sat there. No twitching, no crawling, just awkward, fuzzy stillness. Spielberg was confused until the animal handler stepped in. All male, he said. They won't move. So they added one female to Molina's shoulder. Instant chaos. The males started fighting, scuttling, crawling all over each other and over Molina. The scene came alive, and Alfred Molina stayed perfectly still, covered in rage-fueled tarantulas, on his first day, on his first movie. Now that's a debut. Number 14. They needed a Nazi U-boat. They didn't have one, and Spielberg wasn't about to fake it. The production was filming in Europe, not far from where another World War II epic had just wrapped. Das Boot. That submarine was still intact, detailed, massive, perfect. So they borrowed it, painted on some new insignias, framed it just right. And suddenly, Indy had a full-scale Nazi sub for his daring escape. It was one of the few moments where movie history literally handed Spielberg a prop. A German war story gave birth to an American adventure. And in one swift move, Raiders became bigger, louder, and more grounded than ever before. Number 15. Parents didn't expect that. They came for an adventure, a whip-cracking, globe-trotting treasure hunt. But then, the Ark opened, and everything changed. The air turned electric. The Nazis screamed, and their faces melted, rotted, and exploded. In 1981, this wasn't just intense. It was a line-crossing moment. Kids screamed. Theaters went silent. And soon, the MPAA was flooded with complaints. The studio held its breath. Spielberg too. Because if they lost the PG rating, they'd lose the family audience that made blockbusters work. But somehow, they slipped through. No cuts, no edits, just a firm warning and a bit of luck. That scene, that horror, stayed intact, and it helped launch the national debate that would later create a new rating, PG-13. So in a way, the face melt didn't just burn itself into pop culture, it rewrote the rules of what movies could show, and who was allowed to watch. Number 16. It's one of the film's most disturbing gags. A monkey, wearing a tiny vest, raising its paw in a Nazi salute. But behind that eerie moment was weeks of frustration. The monkey, adorable but stubborn, refused to salute on command. Trainers tried everything. Treats, signals, rewards. Nothing worked. Then someone figured out the trick. A dangling grape on a fishing line. They held it just above the monkey's head, just out of reach. He lifted his paw to grab it, and Spielberg rolled camera. It took dozens of takes, but they got it. A blink and you'll miss it moment. That left a permanent chill. Because in Raiders, even the animals had secrets. Number 17. The Boulder is pure movie legend. 30 seconds of tension, 10 tons of fake rock, one hero sprinting for his life. But what made it unforgettable was the sound. It rumbled, it growled, it felt real. But that massive sound wasn't stone. It was Foley artistry at its best. Sound designer Ben Burt mixed together a car rolling on gravel, added layers of thunder, and filtered it through echo chambers to give it weight. That boulder, it wasn't chasing Indy. It was chasing the audience. A moment built for your chest, not just your ears. Because in Raiders, even the sound had punch. Number 18. It was meant to hold the wrath of God, and Spielberg treated it like it did. The Ark of the Covenant wasn't just a prop, it was a symbol, mysterious, untouchable, sacred. So sacred, in fact, that Spielberg had the crew lock it up between takes. No casual glances, no peeking inside. He wanted the cast to treat it with reverence, like it was truly dangerous, unknowable. Even the actors admitted they started feeling weird around it, as if something ancient really was trapped inside. That tension? It translated on screen, because when the Ark opens, we believe the impossible. We believe the fear. Number 19. Nobody expected it to go this far. Not the studio, not even Spielberg and Lucas. It was just a passion project. A throwback to Saturday matinee serials, with a lead actor who wasn't even the first choice. But when Raiders of the Lost Ark hit theaters in June 1981, audiences erupted. It didn't just do well, it dominated. Week after week, it packed cinemas across the country. Kids, parents, critics, everyone wanted in on the adventure. By year's end, it was the highest-grossing movie of 1981, and it wasn't done. The Oscars came next. 9 nominations, 5 wins, sound, editing, visual effects. It wasn't just popular, it was respected. And what started as one movie became a legend. Sequels, theme park rides, comic books, imitators. 4 decades later, Indiana Jones is still cracking that whip. Because Raiders didn't just strike box office gold, it built a temple, and the world kept coming back. Number 20. It started as a summer project, in a basement, with borrowed costumes and a home video camera. 3 kids from Mississippi, Eric Zala, Chris Strompoulos, and Jason Lamb, decided to remake Raiders, shot for shot. They built sets from cardboard, used fireworks for explosions, recorded sound on cassettes. Every year, they filmed a little more, for 7 straight summers. By the time they were grown, they had recreated nearly every scene. Spielberg eventually saw it and called it inspirational, even helped fund a final scene they never finished. The project became a legend of its own, a testament to how one film, just one, can change the course of a kid's life. Because sometimes the greatest adventure starts in your garage. Bonus fact: you can't fake history, at least not when you're Spielberg. The Indiana Jones jacket couldn't look new. It had to feel worn, sweated in, dragged through tombs and trenches and jungle mud. So the costume team got creative. They didn't just scuff it, they dragged it behind a truck, scraped it with wire brushes, and to finish it off, they rubbed horse sweat into the leather. Yes, actual horse sweat. Collected, bottled, applied. The goal wasn't grime, it was believable. That jacket had to feel like it had lived through adventures we didn't see. And in the end, it did. Every crease told a story, every scrape, a secret. Raiders of the Lost Ark wasn't just an adventure movie, it was lightning in a bottle, chaotic, handmade, and impossibly alive. It gave us a hero who bled, fell, got up again, and never stopped chasing the truth. And behind the camera, a team of obsessives, artists, and daredevils who didn't just want to entertain, they wanted to build a legend. So if you still hum the theme, if you still flinch at snakes, or ever ran through the backyard with a toy whip like it was the Well of Souls, then this movie, it's part of your story too. Drop a comment. Tell us what legendary film we should unearth next. Because it's not the treasure that makes the story worth telling. It's the chase.